Hello. In today's video, I'm tying what I'm calling a tax day wet fly. This is a pattern fly meant to imitate an emerging insect or an insect that was trapped in the surface film. And here's an example. It's kind of blown up and hard to see, but you can tell that the wings are folded and so on. I'm going to do this one on a size 14, TMC 200. It's going to have mono eyes, and that helps to create the shape that we're looking for. I'm going to use a feather off the rump feather off of this pheasant skin. I'm going to use a little bit of this, it's kind of a yellowish rabbit dubbing, and a piece of that orange. And I picked that orange out because it has some guard hairs in it, and some craft store feathers for the broken wing. And I'm going to hold it all together with size 8/0 tying thread in pale dun. So get the thread started on the hook. Kind of want to go almost halfway back to the point and then come about halfway back toward the eye, and that's where I'm going to place the mono eyes. So as I get these in place, I'll talk a little bit more about that. So as a pattern fly, it could be tied in almost any size in various colors. Although I don't think color is a huge consideration. It's probably second or third, fourth on the list of considerations when you're trying to match something. I think we're looking for a shape first, so it'd be size and shape, and then placement maybe. So I'm thinking this is in in the upper part of the water column, probably just below the surface, and it should represent an insect that maybe got trapped or hasn't quite made it to the surface to emerge, or something that's struggled up there a bit and then has sunken below the surface. So there we'll wrestle with the eyes a little bit and get them perpendicular and set in place. And I work my way to the back. I'm going to add some super glue here. Uh, do a little section of that because I want that thread to act as one unit. So it's in contact with the hook, and that'll keep it from wanting to spin. So that was that saddle, that rump feather from the pheasant skin. And I took the center section, and those fibers are pretty durable. They're kind of in a light ginger color. And I'm going to put them in as the tails. There might be a few too many there, but when they get wet, they're going to wash together and mostly look like one pointy tail anyways. So we'll snip off the excess. And here I'm going to make a loop because I want to rib this fly with, I had to make it longer here because it wouldn't reach my material clip. So, but I want to rib this fly, and I wanted to use this pale yellow thread, and one strand didn't seem heavy enough, so I do want to see the color. So I made a loop. I'm going to twist it up and use that as the rib. Now here's that feather with the center cut out. I'm going to pull down another section of this, and that's actually going to be what I tie in as the upper abdomen, say, kind of a shellback of sorts, but it's not really a shell in this case. So we separated out a few of those fibers, and I'm going to pull it back till I'm catching in just the tips. And there's a short one there, but we'll get him out of the way. And we'll work back and make sure that we went all the way to where the tail and the thread, the rib, were where we left off with the tail and the rib. So here's that pale yellow rabbit dubbing. And I've experimented with other materials here, but I think this dubbing works fine as long as you keep it twist it up pretty tight. So use just a little bit, twist it up pretty tight, and then I get to, as I work my way forward, I can be consistent on the diameter of the body and make sure it's nice and level. So here we are. I can do between the camera and the hook about a 2-inch long dubbing noodle at a time. So it'll take about 3 of those to get up to the eyes. Um, in the meantime, just to point out, so this, again, it's a pattern fly. So if this were maybe an olive shade of dubbing and maybe even the same tail and the same cover on the back, um, but tied much smaller, this would start to look like a blue-winged olive, uh, which are pretty common around tax day. And then some of the other flies kind of pop out around that time too, depending on which stream you're at, right? So blue quills or quill Gordons, maybe even some Hendricksons pop out a little early. Um, in this size and as big as I'm making it, and in these colors, it's probably more like a green drake and probably a Memorial Day wet fly pattern. But I think it's around tax day when we start to think about hatches and um, insect activity. So I'll grab that feather. Those are the tips. The stem's cut out, so those are just the fibers. I park the thread a little bit behind the eye. And we'll get a few wraps around that to make sure that stays there. It's more or less just has to stay there until I rib it. And I'll add a half hitch, or in this case a whip finish, because I'm going to use the rotary feature to put the rib in place. So it's off camera. I could zoom in and out, but it gets a lot harder trying to make sure I stay focused and such. But off camera, I'm using uh, dubbing, hackle pliers and a shepherd's hook to twist up the thread and make it nice and tight. And then since the first wrap, I could have taken that thread to the other side, but it comes across the tail, so I want to make sure I don't jostle those too much. And we want to keep a nice even spacing and not really push those fibers around the far side too far. And kind of like the last wet fly I did where I had pheasant tail on the back, I want to give it a good pull once I lay the thread across those fibers so they kind of pop a little bit, adds the appearance of segmentation. And we'll get that rib tied down. And snip off the excess. So at this point, I'm going to tie in a clump of those fibers from I think these are Mallard feathers. It came in a bag from the craft store. They were tempting. There were a couple of feathers in there that I really liked. The rest of them were these bigger feathers, which I thought I would use on streamers or somewhere. Gonna have to give our thread a spin here, make sure it jumps back. So I kind of have it held in place, and I'm going to test it for length. I want it to go back probably about half the tail. And you can see it, 2 or 3 wraps kind of really holds that stuff in place. So get that held down, it's on top, and I'm going to jump behind the eyes. And basically that's where I'm going to finish the fly. So as not to waste the butt sections of these fibers, I'm going to trim them off at an angle and let them appear like they could be part of the wing case that's still there, or the secondary wings maybe. Maybe if I'd left them a little longer, they'd look more like the secondary wings. And we'll go back to dubbing. In this case, this is the underfur, the orange dubbing from that piece of rabbit fur that I have. And basically, that came from one of those old rabbit fur coats where they were patches of different colors. And I found it on the internet. Came in a bag of various furs, and some of these colors are perfect for certain flies. And this thing has come in quite handy. But again, I grabbed that because it still has some guard hairs in it, so I could separate out the underfur for dubbing. And then I'm going to add a loop, and I have a little pinch of those guard hairs. And here we just want to add maybe something that represents legs and probably adds a little movement. So get in the loop, but it kind of looks too perfect, so I want to push it around a little bit. Not sure if I accomplished what I was after there, but again, I'm off camera with a pair of hackle pliers and the shepherd's hook, and I'm giving that a spin. So we like that. I could have left it mostly bushy, but I don't know. I think to my eye, pulling the fibers mostly backwards looks good. I just took one wrap. And we'll get a wrap or two of tying thread to hold that in place and trim that excess off. And we're going to pull everything back. I'm behind the eyes. And I'm going to give it a couple of wraps. Make sure that those fibers are spread out across the top. And that's where we're going to finish. I'm going to add a little bit of head cement and do a finish there. And kind of wipe off the excess. And I did a 5-turn whip finish with the head cement, and you can add another drop afterwards on top. But that should stay. This is essentially the fly. There's one more little tweak I'm going to do. I'll fool around with the bottom there and do a little primping, but I want to make sure those fibers, those guard hairs are spread out. And I'm going to snip out the center. And I don't know, maybe for no particular reason, but to me the legs come out the side. So I didn't really want the those hairs to go all the way around. So that's pretty much it. Everything's brushed, a little fuzzy. The one I just pulled out would probably make it look more buggy, but I took it out anyways. And I think this thing swung with some more traditional wet flies would do a number on trout. And picture it in other sizes and other colors and imitate emergers and cripples. And hope this helps you out. If you want to learn more about me, look me up on Amazon. Until next time, be safe.